Jorge Masvidal blew some minds this past weekend at UFC Fight Night live from London, England, and it seems to have left a lasting impression on the fan base. Coming off of the longest layoff of his career, heading into this one, I got the feeling that a lot of people felt like a year off of competition would have been a detriment to him. But in retrospect, it seems that time off was just what he needed. In thrilling and shocking fashion, Masvidal vicious knocked out the behemoth welterweight that is Darren Till and left the O2 Arena stunned in silence. It was an amazing fight, all 7 minutes of it. One that was action-packed right from the opening bell. Within 10 seconds of the very first round, Masvidal has scored a very hard and illegal, albeit unintentional, kick to the groin, causing a halt to the action just 2 seconds in. And 8 seconds later was on the receiving end of a stiff cross from Till, putting him right on his back and straight into defensive mode. It had all the dramatic flair one would expect from these two types of fighters getting locked in there together, but nobody foreseen just how dramatic things would get when Masvidal let that hellacious left hand go, cracking Till right on the chin, sending him crashing to the canvas, already unconscious before hitting the mat, leaving the audience in attendance and everybody watching at home with their jaws on the floor. Big win for Masvidal to say the least, and doing it in the fashion in which he did served as a strong reminder of who he is and where he stands in the UFC welterweight picture. I feel like Masvidal has similarities to someone like Conor McGregor or Cowboy Cerrone in terms of how he's perceived by the fans. And what I mean by that is, he's such a polarizing figure with such a prominent persona. I think his skill set as a mixed martial artist gets overshadowed by it. And a casual fan who hasn't been aware of him since his Strikeforce days just doesn't understand how elite level his skill set really is. And Masvidal isn't someone who is trying to be an interesting or entertaining character to drum up interest. No, it's the opposite. As per his interviews during Fight Week in the lead up to UFC London, he hates the disingenuous, fabricated trash talk and doesn't waste his time or energy doing it. He doesn't feel the need to engage in that nonsense because he's a true, real deal to the bone fighter, and he knows that no matter what's said, ultimately he's going to be squaring up with whoever's saying it, and that they're going to have to fight, and that's where he does all of his talking, inside the cage, or in the backyard, or in the bowels of the arena, whether it be a sanctioned fight with millions watching, or a street fight erupting out of nowhere with 7 people watching. He isn't about the fake drivel we've all become so accustomed to, and this is what endears him to fans. Said realness was well on display when the altercation between him and Leon Edwards took place backstage, as you all know by now. Masvidal was being interviewed on live television when Edwards walked past, saying something along the lines of, "I'll fight you in July." But as the live audience and Edwards soon found out, engaging in this fabricated fight hype in an effort to self-promote does not fly with Masvidal. If you're going to challenge that man, you have to be ready to get in a fist fight right there and then, which is exactly what happened. Masvidal didn't hesitate. He walked off camera with his hands behind his back, and 2 seconds later he was landing blows on Edwards and having to be pulled off and separated by security. Insanity. I have to be clear though, I don't enjoy nor condone unsanctioned fighting like that, and it's something I have no interest in seeing. I'm the type to unfollow someone if they post any street fighting videos, or even so much as like a street fighting video, causing it to end up on my Twitter feed. That kind of stuff generally churns my stomach. But it's especially bad when it happens on an MMA broadcast or in any public situation involving an athlete of ours. This sport has grown substantially and continues to grow in popularity at an amazing rate, but it still has a long way to go. And when people see this sort of thing, it isn't good for the fighters and it isn't good for the sport. And it generally leaves me feeling kind of awful and a little embarrassed, if I'm being honest. With that being said, as much as I don't condone violence outside of a sanctioned fight, a part of me appreciates Masvidal keeping them honest. Some guys may get away with the phony fight promotion stuff on certain fighters, but that will not be happening if you have Masvidal in your crosshairs. There are consequences to being disrespectful, and those consequences are going to stop the vast majority of people playing that game right in their tracks. I also really appreciate how he refuses to even say the names of fighters calling him out on Twitter or in interviews, because he doesn't think they deserve the attention and aren't at his level, and in some cases, I tend to agree with him. And being in the entertainment era of this sport where the fabricated drama is so overexposed, it's refreshing to have a real one like Masvidal kicking around. But as mentioned earlier, do not confuse the street tough persona with the fact that Masvidal is a fighter that's rightfully in the upper echelon of his division. He was always amongst the elite, of course. Take one look at his resume and who he has fought just for a reminder of where he stands. But having very short-term memories, coupled with also having a recency bias, as most of us do when it comes to this sport, it took sparking the former title challenger to reassert himself in our minds and at the top of the rankings. And he's done just that, emphatically as well. It seemingly came out of nowhere, but Jorge Masvidal is officially in the title picture. I'm no matchmaker, there are a number of great fights to be had for him, but what I know with certainty is that if Gamebred comes out and performs like that in his next fight, whoever the hell he's standing across from, it'll be his time. Jorge Masvidal is en route for a shot at the UFC Welterweight Championship.